Okay, you ready?
Yes.
Okay, rites of passage.
Okay, that's better.
Yeah, come closer and fill the frame with everything. And you can move backwards and forwards. Sorry. Rites of passage. What is it? In the past, when I've been taught about rites of passage, another word for rites is rituals. And passage, like you know how you pay for your passage to go from A to B, like to transition from one place to another place. So, rites are rituals and practices that assist or facilitate transition changes from being one state to another. And it's often been depicted like this for me, like a stairway. And up here we have death, and down here we have birth. And every time we go through the stages of life, we go through rituals of transition. So when we walk, we have our first birthday and we start to walk. Then we talk. And then we go to school. And then we go to high school. And one person's life could be graduating high school. Not everyone does. And then having a family. Or a job, and growing old. While it's useful to think of each of these as a transition and a rite of passage, I learned something very new today from a young lady when I started to ask her about the changes that she's been through in her short life. And for her, it looks a bit like this. And it made me realise that my own life is like this, and I think everybody's life is like this, and the life of the community is like this. Where we're born, and we go through those growth changes, we walk and talk, and we go to school, and then for her, there was a divorce. And her dad moved out and started to struggle. And so here we find ourselves here. And so another way to look at a rite of passage, a facilitated rite of passage, is to identify that in our lives, if we want to get back up to here where we have a healthy family, we have got to get across from here to here. And we can find that in this area here we have two choices. Either it can become a shadow, a dark place that we ignore or that we pretend doesn't exist, or maybe we medicate it with alcohol and distracting ourselves with all the things of life that help us to forget that life sucks sometimes. Or we can sit in this hole and go for a swim in the misery and kind of drown in because of course a depression like this fills with water. Or if we are facilitating our rite of passage and moving through, then we can tell this as a story. This is part of the story of the journey of life. And so a rite of passage includes in it that element of acknowledging that sometimes we go backwards, sometimes things happen that make, and that we are challenged in ourselves. We go through pain and suffering to get from one, to bridge a gap in our rite of passage. And when I look at that, I think even as a community, we can be getting along really well, and then suddenly this thing called the internet is invented, and our families start to go backwards. Or, colonization looks a bit like a community over 60,000 years gets to a point of perfect harmony with the environment, and then next thing we're in a hole, big hole, and somehow want to climb out. And that's what this program offers us the opportunity as individuals to bridge a gap, a loss, and to continue to grow with that as part of our story. And as a community, we stand here where we're starting to say, what would it look like for us to create a progression for our young people, for our families, to come up into what is the goal. And it might not be getting a job. It could look like something different, but what is it? And how do we get there?